Assalamualaikum. My name is Shazza Natasha binti Abdul Aziz. My group member Ummi Diana binti Abdullah and Nur Marha Shafiqah binti Hassan. So today, we would like to present about genetically modified food, or we can call it GMF. What is GMF? Foods created from organisms whose DNA has undergone alteration through genetic engineering are known as genetically modified foods, often referred to as genetically engineered foods or bioengineered food. When compared to yearly technique like selective breeding and mountain breeding, genetic engineering technique enable the introduction of new traits as well as more control over traits. The development of transgenic technology was greatly aided by the discovery of DNA and the advancement of genetic engineering in the 20th century. According to Los Angeles Times, in 1988, microbial enzymes that have undergone genetic modification were initially permitted for use in food production. Next, the majority of food modifications have mostly concentrated on cash crops such as cotton, soybean, maize, and canola, which are in great demand by farmers. Furthermore, crops that have undergone genetic engineering have better nutritional profiles and tolerance to disease and herbicides. According to American Association for the Advancement of Science in 2012, there is scientific agreement that currently accessible food made from GM crops does not represent a greater risk to human health than traditional foods, but that each GM products need to be examined individually before being released. Next, I will explain about GMF in Islam perspective. Except for the few things that are expressly forbidden, which are already listed in the Quran and Hadith, all things are regarded as desirable. Everything in halal unless otherwise stated. Because these scientific advancements are so new, there is no particular reference or author, modified, or genetically engineered food or components in the Quran or the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad SAW. Products made using genetic engineering or from animals that are not allowed to be used are not allowed. For instance, since pork is illegal, any items derived from pigs that have undergone genetic modification are also prohibited. According to Mufti Fahad Ahmed Qureshi, allowing haram and forbidding halal are comparable to shirk, which is the practice of impute partners to God. Furthermore, if it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that any food products or manufacturing ingredients created through genetic engineering are unhealthy and harmful, the Muslim government will not approve them, and the Islamic scholar will immediately declare their Sharia status and the category of order in which they fall. Next, this rule is possibly the most important. Muslims must stay away from things that are doubtful. The Prophet have a clear tradition about staying away from doubtful items. Muslim customers must avoid GM foods if they have any doubts about them. Based on Mufti Fahad Ahmed Qureshi in 2017 research, the fundamental tenet of halal is that food must be halalan tayyiban, which is Arabic for lawful and wholesome. The Institut Kefahaman Islam Malaysia or IKIM and Jabatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia or JAKIM, two government organisations in Malaysia, concur that GM food is halal as long as it is derived from halal source and produced following halal technique. Next, I will explain about the safety of GMF. It seems to be part of human nature to oppose change and be afraid of the unknown. It is therefore not surprising that genetically modified foods and feed crops have been roundly condemned as Franken foods by many consumers who appear to be equally afraid of consuming an apple with an additional anti-browning chutney or a pink pineapple genetically enhanced with the antioxidant lycopene. But since the initial genetically altered food hit the market, no negative health consequences on consumer have been discovered. According to American Medical Association, the National Academy of Science and American Association for the Advancement of Science and the World Health Organization, as cited in Jane E. Brody 2018, say that about 19% of scientists believe GMF are safe. Even if safe, such food is regarded with doubt if is if Muslim consumer believe that putting pig DNA into plants contradicts their obligation to follow their religion. Other than that, GMF-containing feed is used to rear billions of edible animals each year in this nation with no proof of harm, and animal health and growth productivity increase when fed the genetically modified diet. Furthermore, the use of genetically modified seeds to produce crops like soy, corn, canola, alfalfa, cotton, and sorghum that are resistant to the herbicide glyphosate, whose effect on human health are still unclear, has generated much controversy. Finally, consumers worry about the increasing usage of GMO in the foods they rely on could think about adopting a more cautious stance than outright opposition. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Umidiana binti Abdullah. So I will continue our presentation with explain the function of GMF and the example. So, in fact, the genetically modified food have a function before human having it. The DNA change of genetically modified food using the genetically modified organism method that can be done with plants, animals, or bacteria and others very small organisms. The function-making crops produce a higher yield, a longer shelf life, are resistant to disease and pests, also even taste better. So from that, the genetically modified food that produced from the genetically modified organism GMO have a possible function, which is first, less use of pesticides, second, faster growing plants and animals, third, increase supply of food with reduced cost and longer shelf life, fourth, food with more traits such as potato that produce less of cancer causing sustain with when fried, fifth, 5. Disease and drought resistant plants that require fewer environmental resources such as water and fertilizer. And lastly is medical, which is using medicinal food that can be vaccine or other medicines. So, according to Food Science Technology 2012, genetically modified food (GMF) are helpful in preventing the spread of some disease. The ingredient in these foods that cause allergies are successfully removed by altering their DNA system. And then, compared to the traditionally ground foods, these foods develop more quickly. Also, the population has more food thanks to the increased productivity, perhaps as a result. Next is a blessing in regions that frequently suffer droughts or where agriculture is impossible due to the soil. And crop of genetically modified food (GMF) can occasionally be grown in regions with poor climatic condition as well. So, typical crops can only be grown during a curtain seasons or under curtain advantageous environmental circumstances. Also, despite the high cost of seed for these foods, so that is reduce the necessity of exposing GM crops to harmful pesticides and insecticides, making this food free from chemical and environmental friendly as well. So next, GMF food also be high in nutrition and contain more mineral and vitamin than those found in traditionally ground foods. Next is increased shelf life, and hence there is less fear of foods getting spoiled quickly. quickly. And lastly is the function is for a medical benefit of the world's growing population. From the function, this the example of GMF, genetically modified foods, from different parts such as agricultural and medical research. In resulting from agricultural, the example of genetically modified food GMF from plants is maize. The most widely cultivated crops in the US is maize, and the majority of it is genetically modified. So the majority of GMO maize is designed to withstand herbicides or fight insect pests. Then the GMO maize, which is that's called Bacillus thuringiensis or BT, produce poisonous protein for some insect pests, but not for people, pets, livestock, or other animals. And then the protein that organic farmer employs to manage the insect pests and are the same ones that are safe for beneficial insect like ladybirds. And insect damage is still prevented while using less insecticides with a GMO BT mix. Next is the example in agriculture used to make processed meal and beverage, which is the majority of it is feed to animals like cow and fowl, like chickens. And also salmon have been modified to grow larger and mature faster, and cattle have been enhanced to exhibit resistance to mad cow disease. If you can see in our slide, this is the example of GMF maize and GMS on the salmon. Okay, so in medical research, the example of genetically modified is on human growth hormone was the first protein pharmaceutical made in plant in 1989. And the first, also in 1989, the first antibody was produced. And the most extensively investigate and employ plant species for the productions of fungi genes has been tobacco, which was adopted by both research groups and has subsequently comes to dominate the industry. Next is numerous plants produce antibodies and reaches clinical testing in as of 2003. Okay, so we move to the process of making GMF. For the process of making GMF, genetically modified foods are identify, copy, insert, and grow. It's a new DNA introduced into plants. Into plant cell to create a GM plants, and the cell are typically cultured in tissue culture, after which they're transformed into plants. So plants can be genetically modified by inserting a particular DNA sequence into their genomes to confer a new or different traits. This can entail altering the plant's growth pattern or conferring resistance to disease on it. And thus the new DNA is incorporated into the genome of the GM plant, which is what the seed what the seeds produced by these plants will do. And then the plant also has characteristics to making genetically modified food GMF, which the all living organism traits are governed by the genetic makeup and how it interacts with the environment and the genome, which is formed with DNA in all plants and animal. It's an organism genetic makeup. And then genes, which are section of DNA that typically hold the instruction for constructing proteins that are found throughout the genomes. And the Royal Society article in 2016 said this protein gives the plant its distinctive feature. For instance, genes that transmit the instruction for constructing protein necessary to produce the pigment that give petal their color and responsible for determining the color of flower. Also, in making GM plants, the Royal Society article in 2016 also states the first stage is required transfer DNA into a plant. Then the necessary DNA segment is applied to the surface of tiny metal particles, which are then blasted into the plant cell as one way to transfer DNA. Lastly is utilizing a virus or bacterium is another approach. Numerous bacteria and viruses routinely insert their DNA host cell as a necessary step in their life cycle. So in our slide, this is a process of making GMF in plants. So the end of my part. I will pass to the next presenter, Norma Hashafika.
Next, pros and cons genetic modified food to human and environment. Food that results from the modification of its genetically material, which is a DNA, through combining with the genetics of other organism, is known as genetically modified food. There are several advantages and disadvantages to humans and the environments that we can consider. First, for cons, which is manufacturer use genetic modification to give food desirable traits. Potential advantage of GMF crop to include increased attractiveness to consumer, for example, apples and potatoes that are less likely to bruise or turn brown. Enhanced flavor, longer shelf life and therefore less waste. Greater to grow, to be healthier and cheaper to produce, more nutrients and increase crop yields while lowering costs and increase profitability. So for cons, firstly is the cancer risk, which is there have been concern that eating GMF foods can be contribute to the development to cancer by rising level of potentially substance in the body. While cancer rate has changed over time in US, there is no evidence that this change coincide with the introduction of GMF foods. If there is a link, it could take several more years before a trend emerges. Next, which is may increase antibiotic resistance. Some GMF contains change that make them resistant to certain antibiotic. In theory, the genes from this plant could enter humans or animal when they eat them. As a result, the person or animal could also develop antibiotic resistance. Next is it can be allergic reaction, which is there is a small risk that GMF food can be triggered an allergic reaction, but this is only happen if a genetic change triggered the production of an allergen. So next, which is the last con is toxicity for body organs. In conclusion, genetically modification foods is praised as an acceptable strategy for assuring greater food availability, improved nutrition, and all-around improvement in the agriculture sector. However, there are numerous problems with this technology, most of which are related to safety, healthy, cultural, social, and religion's concern. By performing through studies to establish solid foundation on such issue, the majority of reservation of food created through genetic engineering can be dispelled. The majority of people will continue to be skeptical of genetically modified foods unless actual research is done to support both the advantage and potential risks of such food. Genetically modified foods won't ultimately reach their full potential. So that's all for me. Right, thank you.